Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm going to say that's part of my not knowing necessarily. I mean, I'll throw out some ideas, but I want to, as part of that, I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge that it's an issue, right? Um, Really quick short story. When I was doing the social entrepreneurship, I was interviewing a young Latina woman at University of North Carolina, and she was a senior, and she had been mentoring a couple of other Latina first year students. And I was asking her about like what was working, what wasn't, what did they need. And she came and she said something really interesting related to this. She's like, Bud, so of the two, one of them was really struggling. And we worked during the year and we kind of worked through all kinds of stuff with her. And I thought everything that was going really well. And when we got to the very end of the second semester, she basically said, I'm failing. And this young woman who was the mentor was like, wait a second, I thought we'd been working on this stuff. And the young woman who I was interviewing was saying, look at, like, in the traditional sense, like they came to me because I am them. I'm an older version. I'm a woman. I'm going through the same college. I'm Latina in a predominantly white university. And they were afraid to be vulnerable with me. So how do we get that out into the open? So I think on the one hand, it's right. There's some conversations going on in the culture right now that says like let's talk about failure. Entrepreneurship is really good about saying that. I think sometimes it gets really sanitized that because it sucks to fail. Like it hurts, like it's embarrassing. And it's not somewhere where we want to go kind of emotionally. So I do think we have to have like the groups. And I do think there's a lot of people who really want to find those safe groups. In fact, actually in Campus Candor, that was one of the biggest things I found when I was interviewing young people, like reading in between the lines, is that they wanted an anonymous way to ask for help in kind of like their deepest, darkest secrets. And I still think there's an opportunity to kind of try to create a forum to do that. I was thinking of it for young people. I think for us, it's kind of the thing where you have to do it, where you have to have a kind of a closed door conversation where you create a safe space and like nothing goes outside of the room. And we get to kind of talk about the stuff that really haunts us at night. And there's got to be the confidentiality so that you really feel like this isn't going to kind of go public in some kind of way. And maybe, I mean, I think ideally it happens when you can kind of have a face-to-face, whether it's a Zoom conversation or whether it's in a room. But maybe sometimes it's kind of like some kind of prompt where you can kind of like one of the ideas that we played with that we couldn't fully get out, like make practical yet, was like prompt people to kind of like, what is your deepest fear? What is that snake like that's in there that you don't even want to know? It's like, I'm going to ignore that that's there as best as I can, let alone tell someone else that snake is there. But surface that and maybe in some kind of anonymous way, kind of like throw it out to, you know, your peers or your group of like, so this is what scares the dickens out of me in terms of the work that I'm doing. So I don't know. I think that's kind of like an open question. And I think the other part of it that gets in the way, Kathleen, about this whole stuff is that that we haven't talked about is that because of the lack of funding and, Ali, to your point, the breadth, is that we spread ourselves really, really thin. And so to slow down, to feel like I have the time to sit down and talk with a person or a group of people and talk about those fears, that sounds so wishy-washy when it's like I got to write the next grant. Like the money's got to come in the door and you want me to talk about like my feelings. Yeah, like I'll do that some other time.